Previously. Hello guys. Before we start, don't forget to watch the previous episodes to understand what's going on here. I'm Anna, and today the theft of the century is awaiting me. I'm going to take money from my dad's safe. Seems like it would be so easy to arrange a theft in your own home, especially when you know your parents' schedule and the password to the safe. When you know all the smallest details. Yeah, but that's not quite so. It's not easy at all, especially taking into account the number of dad's security guards, the butler who's always keeping an eye on me, and the cameras in the office. At some point, I even thought maybe I should rob some passers-by, but who in the world would carry $5,000 in his bag? Should I rob several people? Or maybe rob a bank? No, I just can't do that. And I can't beg for $5,000. By making a sweet face and telling everybody I'm being blackmailed, that won't work. And my dad's security guards wouldn't care about my facial expression either. If they caught me red-handed, opening the safe, not that I was strictly forbidden to stay away from the safe. There was actually money there for the servants, for the household issues and so on, but at least it would take a long time to explain to them what I was doing, and it wouldn't work out either. So I started planning the theft literally one night before. I put on a ski mask. I crept through the dark hallways to the safe, wearing gloves not to leave fingerprints. I opened the safe and pulled out a bundle of bills. By the way, I expected there would be a lot more banknotes than I took. And then, executing my ninja skills, which I obtained only that very night, I went back to my room. If it weren't for my terribly shaking hands, I could have given myself an A for PE and an A for IT lessons. Unfortunately, no one can grade themselves. Anyway, me and Ariel met at the appointed time in the same place we did last time. It was the infamous parking lot behind the school. I gave her the money and I was ready to have the recording erased. But Dora was right. Never listen to blackmailers. Ariel took the money, and then she said she changed her mind about our contract. You see, it seemed to her one theft wasn't enough for me to learn my lesson. Now, I have to pay her $5,000 every week until she decided I'd had enough. What choice did I have? Given the depth I was in with all this, I had nothing left. She also knocked me out when she said she knew where I stole the money. From my parents. So I had to grit my teeth, and I started hating the new girl even more. But I had to accept her conditions. The next two thefts were less exciting. Still, the experience is just a matter of training. Except for the fact every time I was shaking with fear, they could catch me. Later on, maybe because of my nerves, or maybe because of the word hopelessness running in my mind all the time, and even displaying on my face. By the third week, I suddenly burst out crying right in chemistry class. Why do all nasty things happen to me in chemistry class? Perhaps this was some kind of fate. Fortunately, no one understood anything. The teacher even thought I accidentally hit my eye with one of the reagents, and she immediately sent me to the school nurse. Dora followed me just out of habit. I have no idea what she said to the teacher to let her follow me, but it was definitely not normal for her to voluntarily skip class like this. So, my gratitude to her was genuine, as well as my hugs, searching for support. I also thought we were hugging too often, but this thought didn't bring me any unpleasant feelings, so I gave up on it. We didn't make it to the nurse, but turned into the bathroom instead, where I burst into tears again and returned to my casual state of nervous paranoia. But this time, Dora didn't remain silent. She quietly asked me to tell her what was wrong with me, and I decided, why not? Dora is a smart girl, and maybe she can give me some advice. I told her how bad I felt about being blackmailed, and how my heart stopped every time I stole money from my parents. I wouldn't confess it to anyone else, but Dora, we weren't friends, that's for sure. But somehow, I started to trust her. Maybe because she's never really betrayed me before? Later on, for my sake, Dora even gave up her lessons with Ariel. Me and Dora were back together in chemistry, and my inner monster was somehow very happy about it, even though I knew how important grades were to Dora. And for some reason, I did my chemistry homework with all my power. I even hired a tutor to keep up. But these were also some forbidden thoughts. It was impossible for me to admit even to myself that I cared about Dora. I lied to myself, calling it just my desire to help my classmate. It helped in some way to escape from the feeling I liked Dora more and more. Of course, at first, Ariel was indignant that Dora separated from her and chose me. I guess she even started to suspect something. And then, well, Dora deserved her right to be the smartest student in school. So first, she offered to watch the new girl because this upstart couldn't be just perfect. Dora always had some doubts about the quality of her schoolwork and knowledge, but I never understood why. But how could I watch her? Ariel wouldn't even let me approach her, especially after she started blackmailing me. For some reason, I was more worried about Dora than about myself. But of course I didn't show it outwardly. I didn't want Dora to think she meant anything to me. So, nothing special happened for 3 days. The newbie went about her business, pretended to be friendly with everyone, and smiled at the teachers. She was perfectly wearing a mask of the innocent lamb, but I knew that this evil sheep was blackmailing and tormenting other people, taking lots of money. Me and Dora were lucky the math teacher announced the test. Why lucky? Because Ariel was feeling nervous. I mean, outwardly she still acted like an innocent lamb, but both me and Dora had already learned a lot about her. Her fingers were shaking. She was blinking a little more often than usual, and for some reason, she stayed late after classes, instead of being one of the first to leave the classroom. Once I left the classroom, and Dora stayed there to watch, she hid in the cupboard and had a good viewpoint to see. All right, first things first. Ariel didn't notice anything and suspected nothing. And that was her mistake, because the whole school already knew me and Dora were friends. So she just left her enemy behind. Well, not a great thing for her to do. Anyway, my spy remained unnoticed. Dora watched Ariel talking to a couple of our classmates. No, this wasn't so strange. She invested in her reputation as a good girl. And what does a good girl usually do? Right, she helps the low scorers. But these boys acted strange. Not that they needed some help from anyone. Ariel talked to them as if she needed something. Besides, my dad also told me to stay away from them, because they would only have one way in life: join a gang, then get killed or put behind bars. According to the school gossips, these two guys distributed drugs around the school, but I've never used their services myself, and neither did Dora. So we just have to keep an eye on them. Who knows, maybe it's just gossip. And later, Ariel exposed herself. Apparently, something didn't work out with the guys, or she didn't like their conditions. Anyway, Dora noticed these guys went outside the math class and stood at the door. They were kind of watching for something. All the students were supposed to be leaving the school by that moment, so I called the janitor and said 2 guys were still there. While the janitor was distracting these juvenile under-gangsters, Dora saw Ariel trying to break the lock in the teacher's desk. And then, Ariel took some papers and started to photograph them with her cell phone. Being a smart girl, Dora immediately used my phone to take a couple of pictures of Ariel. And she even managed to mute the photo sound and turn off the flash. She was cooler than any spy in the world ever. Ariel didn't notice anything, of course. She was just photographing all the papers, and Dora took enough pictures of her and somehow left the classroom unnoticed. Was it luck? Well, looks like yeah, that was it. Later on, we looked at the pictures together and realized what exactly the new girl was doing. She broke into the teacher's desk to get the answers for the test. Well, if the teacher knew about it, Ariel would surely be expelled from school, and that was even the best-case scenario for her. She could get even more punishments. I even joyfully hugged Dora and started spinning around the room. It was a success. Now I could go to her and negotiate, but I still needed to wait for the test to pass and Ariel to get her highest score, because in this case, my blackmail would definitely work. I was just afraid if I didn't do it, this blackmail would never end and may turn into something else even more ridiculous. By the way, Dora explained she suspected something like this from Ariel. The newbie really showed 2 good results in the classroom. She always passed the tests with the highest score, but Dora spent some time studying with her, and she guessed her secret from the beginning. Our new girl didn't do very well, in fact. Dora did all the work, while Ariel pretended she always knew everything. Well, later, Dora noticed the same thing in other classes. Okay, Ariel did some things by herself, but mostly, she tried not to shine with her knowledge, or she passed her homework for others. And my smart girl was right. Our new star just copied the ready answers. So, no magic, just a sleight of hand. At our next meeting in the parking lot, the newbie received a folder with photos of her instead of money. Being a smart girl, she immediately understood why I did all this, and didn't deny anything. Oops, now you're in big trouble too, Miss Ariel. I gave her a choice. She had to delete all the dirt on me, then I destroy all the dirt on her. Otherwise, we'll drown together. Especially since I would somehow solve my problems at school with my parents in this case, but she would just fly out with disgusting recommendations. The choice was obvious. For her. As for me, I would have chosen to drop out of school together. We solemnly removed the dirt and parted, very angry with each other, but at least there was no fight or scandal. However, I kept copies of the photos, just as a safety measure, and I suspected she also didn't erase the original recording from her memory. But at least I didn't have to be afraid, and I definitely didn't need to steal from my family anymore. The only thing that still bothered me was the looks of my ex-girlfriends. Once our head teacher decided to take our class to the zoo, and so that we wouldn't get bored there, she chose a time when the zookeepers usually fed animals. The lion that the caretaker was feeding was looking at the meat, as if it was only a matter of time before it digested in his stomach. Just in case, I reminded Ariel of our agreement and hinted that maybe, just maybe, some of the photos were still in my possession. Or not, or I still stored them. Only hypothetically, of course. To which Ariel just smiled and advised me to better monitor my mail. It was a war, and worst of all, I had no idea which way to expect a blow from that freaking mermaid. So, just in case, I passed the remaining photos to Dora and laid low. But she kept waiting for trouble, because she was sure Ariel wouldn't give up. And I wouldn't back down. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like the story, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications not to miss the next episode. Bye!